Hello, welcome to Dear Diary. Rest in peace. My name is Ayanda, and this is a podcast for the girlies that just want to talk. We want to go to our graves with no secret. We want our caskets to be light. Who needs a diary when you can press record? Today, I'm going to tell you about how I started my own teen pregnancy. If you have a daughter, you may want them to watch this one, especially a daughter in high school. If your daughter is above the age of 16, let's start it at 13. If your daughter is 13, I need them to watch this video. If you've watched the other episodes, you already know the journey that I've gone through in terms of my body, my periods, and the maternal influences around me. If you don't know, I'm just going to do a quick recap. My mother passed away shortly after she gave birth to me, and I was raised by relatives, and my father was a single father, and I navigated my life essentially parenting myself. Although I was not living in a child-headed home, I felt that a lot of things that I had wanted for myself needed to be done by me. And I did not have a very close relationship, or I didn't have anyone that could mentor me personally to the extent at which I needed help. So yeah, that should give you some context. If you need more, you can watch the other videos. At the age of 14, when I was in grade 8, I got my period, and that's when it hit me that, okay, that time has arrived. The time at which boys are going to want to put things inside me. Funnily enough, I had started dating from grade 5. So at the age of 11, I already had a boyfriend. Poor boyfriend. He couldn't even read, but he was my boyfriend and he was so cute. From grade 5 upwards, I've just always had a mini boyfriend here, a mini boyfriend there. All of them were just so silly and so dirty. They didn't like bathing. What was that about? Boys don't like water. Well, boys didn't like water then. I'm hoping that boys like water now. But they were just all so dirty. And I'd be dirty as well because, well, we're all kids. But I'd be making some effort. I'd have Vaseline on my lips, Sometimes I would steal my sister's lip gloss and apply it on myself and hope that the boy would see. And then he would just show up with shoes that were so dusty. His ankles, and their lips never moisturized their lips, not even bothered to lick them. They just always had such ashy lips. And I remember telling myself, I'll never kiss a boy. Boys suck and they don't bath and they are not moisturized. I'll never kiss a boy. And in grade 8, I had my first kiss and it was horrendous. It was terrible. I felt like there was a lot of saliva. I cried, ran into my house, brushed teeth at 5 p.m. The boy was leaving the street before mine and he had kissed me and I didn't like it. And there was saliva and I was like, you know what? Never again. This was grade 8. I don't even remember if it was before or after my period. I was like, never again. I'm going to die without having to be kissed. What was this nonsense? And I could even taste his Colgate. Like, he came prepared to kiss me. This boy, like, he's kissing me, the saliva. I'm tasting some methanol, menthol, mint. What is that thing they put inside toothpaste? I'm like, this is such a weird combination that is so horrifying. I no longer want to feel this. I would no longer want to taste it. It was warm. It was just disgusting. I brushed my teeth, got into bed, and made a vow to myself, never will I kiss a boy ever again. And then I got my period, and then I remembered the conversation I'd had with my aunt where she had said, and by the way, once you start having period, boys are going to want to touch you, and then you're going to fall pregnant. Unfortunately for her, I had gotten the proper education. You don't get pregnant when boys touch you. You get pregnant when you engage in sexual encounters with boys. Well, I obviously did not correct her, but I knew she was right to some extent. And I also knew that because I was not being raised by my biological parents, I could not afford to bring in an extra mouth to feed. I thought to myself, I want my child to not experience how confusing my living arrangement is. Therefore, I'm not going to have a child. And then I told myself that whatever boy I date, I'll have to communicate it clearly with him. Look, I don't want to have sex. Will you still date me? Because unfortunately, I'm a very, very attractive and funny girl. And as I was intelligent, everybody wanted to be my friend. Everybody wanted to date me. That's a lie. That's a lie. But I had a couple of boys that were like, we like you. I was like, you do. Let's sign a contract that says you're not going to have sex with me. I actually did make boys sign contracts when I was younger to say that we're dating, but we're not going to have sex. Or if we do have sex, you're going to have to marry me. And all of them could not afford to marry me because we're all children. So none of them wanted to do that. Or that if we had sex, I'm going to sue. If we have sex and I fall pregnant, I'm going to sue. Mind you, I didn't even know anything about legal procedures for suing and anything. But because I was an intelligent kid, everything I said sounded like fact, even when it was just hot air. And the boys just started avoiding me. And then the ones that did date me started accepting that I really did not want to fall pregnant. But the root of the reason I did not want to fall pregnant goes back again to how I looked, how I felt, and the life that I wanted for myself. I'm going to explain. As you can see, I'm I'm a dark-skinned girl, very brown. I've always been brown. I've never been light-skinned. And at the time, there was an impression that girls that looked like me were not attractive enough. So it was difficult for me to engage in relationships with boys romantically because there was already the expectation that there were girls that looked better than me because they were a certain way, light-skinned, da-da-da-da-da-da. So, which I didn't mind because I never actually enjoyed male attention. But when you are at an age where everyone seems to always be talking about boys, you also wonder, why do I have one boy giving me attention? And my friend who's light-skinned has 6 boys that are giving her attention. So those are the things that you think about, even though at the time I really didn't care for boys. I still don't care for boys. I think I've never been anyone that navigated my worth in terms of how boys or men viewed me. So, but then unfortunately for me, I had a large chest, which meant that the attention I was receiving from males was predominantly men that were older than me and were men that obviously wanted to sexualize me and want to do sexual things with me because they were aware of how my body had been developing, which made me feel extremely unsafe and like I had no control. So I had to decide within myself to say, before that, because my boobs were large, older women in the community liked accusing me of being pregnant, and I started getting ashamed of having large boobs that I would wear a jersey. Even during hot seasons, I'd be wearing a jacket, I'd be wearing a jersey, and then you'd be walking anywhere at school, anywhere where an older woman would be present. They would be like, "Yowen, bulamo," and then they would unzip your jacket or would raise it and then turn around and they'll look at your legs, because apparently they could tell that somebody was pregnant by looking at their legs behind the knees and whatever. And then they would make me raise my arms and they'd just squeeze my boobs, and it was so humiliating because each and every one of them was doing it in public. But also, these were not people that cared enough for me to not want me pregnant. I think they were just being nosy, but it made me feel so exposed. And imagine, I have a large chest. Most of my friends' boobs are still growing. Mine are already like full C's, cup C's at that point, and I'm still like 14. And then I don't have proper bra. I'm wearing like, but again, stomach out. I'm just trying to be as normal as possible. And my boobs are sore and they're heavy and they're big. And then I hide them with my clothing. And then I'm always hyper of the fact that at any point, an older woman would accuse me of falling pregnant. And when they confronted me, I couldn't also say, by the way, I can't be pregnant because I'm not having sex. I'll just be there, like just feeling so humiliated, and these people or person looking over my body and checking if I'm doing. And after that, there wouldn't be like a counseling or sorts, like, whew, I'm so glad you're not pregnant. By the way, if you fall pregnant, you're going to do that, and you're going to lose your future and it's painful. None of that. It was just okay, you go on your way. I hated it so much. So number one, the first reason I prevented my own teen pregnancy was first understanding that, number one, I don't look like everyone else. Or I look like everyone else, but I don't look like the standard for beauty. Meaning that I was already getting punished for the way that I looked, the way that my body looked by the world. Younger boys thought that my body was too developed for them and I was too mature looking. And then older men thought that I was moving very fast and they could help me get there faster. So I realized that the way that I appeared was very different. And because it was different, I had to protect myself by not engaging in people that were going to weaponize my appearance. So although I was dating, I had to make it clear that, by the way, I'm not going to have sex with you. And I felt that was important to say, to mention, because I was aware of how differently people were viewing my appearance. I did not want to think that the boys that would come in to say they liked me and wanted to spend time with me, that they would think that I would reward their attention with my body. So it was a deliberate effort on my part to say, hey, you look different. People think that people that look like you are not pretty enough. Therefore, you need to be stubborn. You need to understand. And at the time as well, I also didn't think I was beautiful. That's the other thing that you must keep in mind. You must not think that I navigated it with this confidence of, oh my goodness, you think I'm ugly? I'm beautiful, black like me. No, 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 no. I was one of the people that thought that I was unattractive. But I also knew that if I were to play into that thinking, or to show people that I was also playing into the thinking that I was unattractive, I was going to move in ways that were not going to be able to protect me. Like I was going to overcompensate for male attention. And the men that thought that my boobs were growing fast, or that I was a woman already, even though I was just a teenager, those men would have seen a way to get into my life, because they would have realized that I'm struggling with certain things about my appearance and my body. And when anybody could have complimented my appearance or my body or my boobs or whatever, especially a male, I knew that if I showed, or if I had moved in the way that the world was moving towards myself, I would have allowed males especially to convince me that the reward for them seeing me differently, seeing me as attractive, seeing me as sexually appealing, would have been that I would have had to compromise myself or sacrifice my body for that interaction. And I didn't think any man was worth it, because already I was of the view that most of them were not bathing like us, because the girlies would like hide skincare products in their school bags, and they would have combs, and they would have perfume, and they'd have lip glosses, and the boys would just rock up to school and then leave. Some of them would use the same shirt for the entire week. So I was already thinking, you guys are not as clean as us, ne? Why are you not polishing your shoes? So I already thought, no, Lena lehlapi. But the hot ones that were clean, I was like, you guys are clean, but there were not many. I already had this mindset of, we are clean. Why are they this way? And I was in the learners' council as well. And when we'd monitor the toilets, the girls' toilets always seemed to be in a better condition than the boys' toilets. So even that thinking like made me think, I don't want to deal with this. I really, really, really don't want to deal with this. And unfortunately as well, that was around the time when a girl would have been pregnant within the school environment, it was a taboo. You became a laughing stock. Everywhere you went, you would have like 70 eyes just moving with you, people whispering, people making these assumptions about your family life and about your pregnancy and about everything. So I also knew that I have a lot of pride, and I did not want to be spoken of in that regard. I did not want a scenario where I would have to navigate life as a pregnant girl on my own, because I felt very lonely as a teenager as well, which is a very common feeling for teenagers. Even teenagers that come from some of the warmest homes in the world feel some loneliness when they navigate the transition from being a girl into a woman. So I knew that I was lonely, I was a little bit depressed, and I knew that I needed a lot of people on my side. That's the other thing. I knew that if I tried to be a good person, although it was difficult at the time because I was a very rebellious teenager, if I tried to toe the line, everything would be okay, and I would have some people, especially adults, on my side. But the cherry on top, which is the ultimate reason why I had not fallen pregnant, is because I was thinking of my future. And this may sound so boring to most people, because obviously everybody thinks about their future to some extent. But for me, my biggest goal from ever since I knew that people could leave their homes, my biggest goal was to be able to move out and live on my own. And I knew every single person around me at the time that had had a child young, all of them remained in the village. And I told myself, I do not want to live here one more year. That's why also I took the failures very personally when I was failing grades, even though I was not studying enough to pass. Me failing a grade meant the dream to leave home was getting postponed. It was getting pushed back because I was not applying myself, and I was not moving like somebody that does not want to live in the village for the rest of their life. But main point was that no matter what happens, I'm going to fail at studying, because I did not have it in me to study. I was depressed. I was tired. A lot was going on. So I knew that I was not going to study as much as I should have because I was not in the headspace and the environment which nurtured that routine of studying all the time. So I knew that I was going to fail at that. Number two, I knew that if I fell pregnant, I would have to drop out of school. That's another thing that scared me. And I liked going to school. That's why I would go as early as possible and return at 5 p.m. because I enjoyed being at school. So I knew that I could not afford to not be at school. Because, by the way, if you watched last week's episode, you also know that I was getting my pads at school. I didn't even think that when I get pregnant, I'm not going to be able to get the pads. So, but I was just thinking like I'm depending a lot on the school environment. My friends were at school, my favorite teachers were at school, and I was intelligent in most of my other subjects. So I enjoyed the positive environment school was. So I knew that I couldn't fall pregnant because I did not want to have to drop out of school. Number three, I knew that I did not want to fall pregnant because if I fell pregnant, then I would have to remain in the village for longer. Oh, there's flies in here. My God. If you hear a fly, just know that I keep doing them, but they keep coming back. I don't know what else to do. I knew that if I fell pregnant, I would have to remain in the village for longer, either raise my child until they went to grade R, while I returned to school after all my mates would have finished school years prior. And before going to university, I knew that chances of me being forced to go find work were higher because I would have had a dependent. And I knew that I did not want that. Number four, I knew where I wanted to move to. I knew that after matric, I wanted to move to Polokwane. I did not want to go to Gauteng at all. I did not want Joburg. I did not want Pretoria. At the time, I did not know that I was struggling with ADHD and that I genuinely also just not enjoyed overcrowded places with a lot of things going on and da. The main reason for me at the time not wanting to go to Pretoria where my sisters and my father were is because, and my aunts, most of like my whole family, extended relatives, everything live in Pretoria. So I knew I did not want to go there because I did not want to be in their presence. I wanted to gain independence. On top of gaining independence, I wanted to establish my life on my terms. And if I had had a child, I knew that I would have to, one, remain home. And after remaining home, I would have to go live in Pretoria with one of my sisters because that would have been cheaper. And because I knew that children costed money, I also made the mental note in my head to say, if I manage to pass matric or even fail, because I ended up failing matric, I'm going to have to go to Polokwane because I don't know myself. Because I had grown up in a large family and I was raised amongst cousins and what, I never felt that I could, I did not feel that I was able to identify with myself. I was always Smangmang's child. I was so-and-so's younger sister. And I was always doing this for people and chores and da. The work does not end in the village. And I found that I was not able to calm down because I was also always so anxious. Now I know that some of it was mental issues and I had some depression, but there was a lot of noise. That's how I would explain it. The noise of being a teenager, existing in teenage spaces with teenagers doing teenage things, the noise of being a child in a home with other children and multiple adults that were trying to steer the home, the noise of everything I know I can become, realizing that I could really become a better person if something went quiet. Like I needed quietness. That's how I would also explain it. And I knew that I can't get quietness with a child. I can't have a quietness with a child because they're going to be here demanding my attention. I couldn't have quietness to think, dream, and also exist outside of the structure that I was brought up in. So you can think of it as a deal with myself to say that I'm not going to have sex because of the school. I set a clear goal to say, I'm not going to have sex because I want to leave home. I want to move out. I can't move out if I have a child. If I have a child, I'm going to have to come back home nearly weekly because the child would still be young. Or if I leave, I would have to come back home nearly weekly because the child would still be young. And I likely won't go to university because I'd have to get a job to be able to care for the child. And because I'd also seen that most of the teen pregnancies that were happening around me, the couples ended up breaking up. Some of them dropped out. Some of the fathers were just as young as the mothers. A few of them were being impregnated by older people, but those that were within my circle or within my space were people that were getting pregnant by their age mates. So I knew that I could not afford to have a child for the reasons that I felt that my child would have limited me from spreading my wings. And then after I passed matric without a child, I was eventually able to move out. And when I moved out, my father had a conversation with me to say, hey, I want you to live in Pretoria. And I said, no. And for him, it made sense because it was the first time I was not living from home. We don't know anyone in Polokwane. I don't have a relative here. Nobody knew anyone. Even my family members don't even come to Polokwane because we don't know anyone. We come to Polokwane only to go to Moria. So my father wanted me to move out of home and then move in with my sisters in Pretoria, live with them. Obviously, they were going to take care of me. He was going to save costs, da 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 da. And I said no. And then he said, well, if you're going to live in Polokwane, just know that I'm not going to send you a cent. I said, okay, I'm going to have to survive without your cent because in my head, what I wanted was a place where nobody knew me, a place where I could reinvent myself and see what I could do if it was just me and the world. Because already, although I had family members and friends and da 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 da, it felt like I was navigating a lot of my emotions on my own, and nobody truly understood what was going on in my head and my heart. I remember in grade 12, we were doing a prepared speech, and it was happening in term 1 during English, where the teacher would give you a topic and then, or they would tell you to pick your own topic and make a speech. And at the time on SABC, when there used to be this show called If You Really Knew Me, it was an organization like an NPO of sorts. It was in the United States. They'd go to schools. It was meant to, it was an anti-bullying show. So these guys would go to a school, get there and get everybody at assembly and then create this games, like some sort of survey, like if you're from a 2-parent household, step forward. If you're from a 1-parent household, step forward. If your parent is disabled, step forward. If you've ever been raped, step forward. And then they would group people as per their experiences. And then at the end of the exercise, what people needed to learn was to realize that all of us were the same, and that even some of the most popular, some of the happiest people in the world, or some of the quietest people in the world were having certain struggles that united us. And I loved that show. Although I liked going home late, I enjoyed going home early on the days that the show was playing. So in grade 11, I think, we were doing a prepared speech and we were asked to pick our own topics. And I picked the title of my speech was If You Really Knew Me, You'd Know That. And I got a standing ovation in class. I wonder if any of my classmates still remember. But I wrote a speech to the effect of, I'm a bubbly person. All of you see this bright, sunny personality, but what you don't know is that I'm struggling. I may have tried to kill myself, da 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 da. But because also I was a good writer and I had been making money out of writing speeches and essays for my classmates, maybe they thought I was just being creative. Anyway, I made that speech and then the whole class was roaring and congratulating me. But it felt good to have to say it out loud, to say, hey, by the way, I've got some struggles in my head. But it didn't go anywhere because I think it was just seen as me being a creative and writing well. But it felt nice to finally say, even as indirectly as that was, to say, hey, by the way, just because people are happy does not mean they're not struggling. So the quietness that I had wanted, that I knew I could not achieve by living under the shade of my siblings if I had moved in with them, is that I would have still felt compelled to exist as the person that they knew. And I knew that I needed to reward myself with my own space because I had committed to not having sex. And by the way, it's a commitment because a lot of people were having sex in high school, actually. In fact, I would let me not make any claims, but high school is where teenagers become themselves and they get curious and they engage in certain behaviors. And to the point where I also would not drink alcohol at the rate at which other people were drinking alcohol. I would dabble with it, but there was a general understanding that Yaya doesn't drink. Like I would have one can of guarana, because guarana was trending at the time, guarana or whatever, and I'd have it for the whole night, and then I would spill it because there's this pressure to appear sociable by smoking and drinking and da 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 da. So I would pretend to be joining in, and I'd have boyfriends, and then, but I would also proudly declare that I'm not going to do everything else. You're having sex, that's crazy. And then I would be the one probing, like, how was it? Da 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 da. But I never did it myself because I knew I needed that reward, the reward of having to leave home and not have to look back because I did not have a child. So I was like, we're not doing it. I need to get out of here. And then when I left and went to Polokwane, and my father was like, I'm not sending you money if you don't come to Pretoria. I said, cool, bruh. I'm not coming to Pretoria, because I knew that I could do more. And I knew that my environment could shape me better. But I also needed to be particular about what that environment was. And I knew that I needed to get out of the village. I needed to be in a city, but I did not want a city that was too big, because on top of having ADHD, I didn't know this yet. I didn't know this then, but I thought that if I had gone to Pretoria or Joburg or anywhere in Gauteng, because I like things and I'm sociable, and I thought that I would end up smoking something illegal, like cocaine. I thought I would do something like that. So I would tell everyone, guys, Nagia Papa, I can't be in Pretoria, I can't be in Joburg. But now that I'm old, I'm realizing I wouldn't have made it in that environment. It's too busy. My mind is too busy. Not as a person, I'm a very busy person and I'm impulsive. I would have likely, truthfully maybe as well, I would have likely also have been engaging in some substances. And I knew in some bigger cities, I'm not saying that you can't do any of those things in smaller cities and even in villages, because we see now that even in villages, people are engaging in certain behaviors that are known to be big city behavior. But I knew that in some other areas, it was easier to become somebody that you don't know than in others. And I knew that I needed a slower place. And I knew that I needed a slower environment. I needed to come into myself, because I knew that my mind was moving fast and my body had already been moving fast, because I had developed very fast and I was moving fast. I knew that I needed an environment that felt like it was forcing me to come down. And I knew that I needed to come to Polokwane, which I did. And my father really did not send me any money. And then I started writing seriously now, and I was charging people the 300 for writing their stuff, and I would approach politicians and be like, hey, I want to write your speech, but I need you to give me 500. And most of them were like, no. But I thought that because I was in the political space, that it would be easy for me to write things and be paid for it. But people don't respect creative work. People, especially writing as well, people don't respect it. But these are the same people that can write for themselves, but like, so I was like, okay, damn, that's crazy. And then I started writing for students, because students don't have time and they want to impress people. So I was like, do you have a creative writing, what? And then I would read some books for them, and then I would summarize them for them. And then I spoke to my uncle, who sent me rent money, and then I started hustling my way out of that situation. And then eventually my father realized that I would not budge, and then he began sending me money as well. But either way, from that point onward, I've just been hustling. And then I started working everywhere. I've worked at Mr. Price. I've worked at Checkers. I've worked at Bag& Books. I've worked for individuals. I've done anything and everything in order to not be able to go back. Sometimes I would not have food, and I'd be living in a room. The places I was living at were like costing around 800 rands and so, and da. And even then, at that point, I'd already started having sex, but I was also extra cautious because I knew that I didn't have money, and I knew that I needed my life to turn out in a specific way. Although I had begun having sex, I also still could not afford to fall pregnant, because that would have meant returning home. Meaning that I slowed down on the sex as well, and took precautions to ensure that I did not fall pregnant, because I was enjoying being on my own, even though I was suffering. I would say I enjoyed the freedom of being by myself, of thinking and of reinventing myself, and of reintroducing myself to people, to say, hey, my name is so-so, and people would not judge me as per what they would have known me to be. For an example, right now, because of how I've been able to reinvent myself from the chaotic girl in high school that was just doing too much and getting nowhere, Miss Know It All, I believe that I've been able to move from that image of myself. And I've also forgiven myself for not doing my best during those years because I knew that I was also struggling with the things that I was struggling with. Life was starting to shape up. Then I was like, maybe I can be a mother. Maybe I can. I was like, okay, now this thing of becoming a mama is it's making sense. I'm at a certain point in my life. I've made certain friends. I exist in spaces where I started believing if I were to make a child now, me and the child would be okay, which was my other priority because I wanted my child to be mine. I did not want, especially, which is what happens when you become a teen parent most of the time, or when you become a young parent, or when you become a parent without clear career prospects, you end up having to give your child away to like a relative or your parent or whoever that would be in a position to take better care of them because they're older than you. I knew that I did not want anyone else to raise my child. So that's part of the reason why I didn't want to have a child young, and I did not want to have a child even 5 years after I would have left home because I knew that I had not yet established an environment in which my child would be mine and would be with me all the time. It would make me sad sometimes, although it's unavoidable, that children would call their grandmother's mama because their mothers were young when they had them. So I knew that I didn't want that for myself. And because also I had lost my mother young, I had this romanticized belief of what parenthood would mean for me or how I would parent. And I knew that I needed to look at myself objectively as a person and think to myself, am I in a position to make this mistake? And the answer was always no. And the answer only became yes, maybe 7 years after high school, when I was already confident in my career prospects and I was making a little bit of money and I had my own place. That's when I started thinking, So if you're watching this and you had a child young, please know that this is not to bash you. This is not to say that you could not think critically or analyze things better. No, this is not that at all. Everyone did their best with what they knew at the time. This is just a note to younger me to say, congratulations, you did it. You did it, you got out. And to teenagers as well, to say that sometimes when you're a teenager, it looks like the world thinks you're not thinking. But I know you're thinking because I was a teenager and I was thinking. So I need you to put your thinking hats on and really think. The kisses are nice. The cuddles are nice. Whatever you're doing in the dark is nice. It's cute. You have something to talk about at school tomorrow. But is it worth it for you to make that mistake? That's the question you should ask yourself. And then you're going to realize that the answer is no. And then the following year, the answer will still be no. And the year after that, the answer would still be no. That's how you know that as a teenager, you can make the mistake. And I'm not even speaking about people that are coerced into situations. I'm speaking about people that are active participants in sexual encounters. That's when you realize that as a teenager, you're way too young to be having a child, because even 5 years after you leave your teens, you're still going to be thinking to yourself, I'm so young. How is the world expecting me to have all answers about my career and my life and I am so young, because you'd really still be so young. So allow yourself to come into yourself and to realize exactly what you want, how you want it, where you want it. Allow yourself to experience life and the world before you allow yourself to take care of someone else in a world in which you would also have to still take care of yourself. That's it. If you had a child young, please share in the comments below. How was the experience for you? What would be your advice? If you did not have a child young, what was your experience and what would you advise? Let's create an environment where everyone can be open to sharing their experiences and they not be shamed for it. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to love and leave you. And I'm wondering if we're going to have an episode next week, because it is December, guys. Rikujaneng. And I know you guys will no longer want to be listening to this podcast when you're busy with your brides and your Sunday goals. So we'll see. Maybe we can have one more, maybe not. Otherwise, whichever one it is, I really hope you guys have a delicious festive season. Kiss your little ones, especially the ones with the chubby chick. Say hi to your family members for me. Merry Christmas. Ke kgopela le beng safe. Happy New Year. I may or may not see you next week. I really want to wish you all of the best in the season, and I really hope you cross over safely. And then I'll see you next week or next year. Nobody knows. Get December. Thank you so much. I love you. Bye.